Well, let's talk about what's going on in the world right now. If you haven't looked around this world right now, there's a lot of chaos. Venezuela just got quote unquote invaded, or however you want to call it. We've got BRICS going on the other side of the country, world, a lot of big stuff that's going on. And even in the United States, several states are going under federal investigation. It's just so much stuff. But what does it really boil down to, as Tayu is really grabbing her head? One word, one word, one word. And we haven't talked about this, so I told y'all we're just going to be raw and unscripted. That one word is energy. Because, see, you are an energy producing unit. And this is the reason why I got Tayu on here, because she may or may not agree with me, and we like to be very candid and upfront. But what's happening right now is there is a global shift of power. There is really no more new world order. What there is a trilateral world order. But what we work to do on this channel specifically is to really give you some high level overviews that will affect you day to day. Because if you can't see the whole playing board, what happens is you become a victim of what we know as a grifter. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, Tayu, how are you today?
Thanks, Fred. Always happy to be here.
Cool. So we're going to jump right in, and we're going to go straight into what I've observed from being in the online industry for so long. I mean, guys, I was one of the first ones who literally was on the internet like back in 1995, like professionally in a military capacity. And since that time, I've watched this industry get built from scratch. I've been around before Google. I've been around before Facebook. If you're old enough, MySpace. So it's one of those things where I have personally observed and have witnessed, and I actually have been trained at a very high level to see certain things that most people can't see. This is one of the reasons why people like to get into politics. I'm not political, for the record. I am nonpartisan. I do not care. All I care about is, are you a good human, and do you want to do good things to help out other people in its most purest sense? And me and Tay, you can definitely agree on that. So she has a lot of high level expertise as well. She's a unicorn in what she does, just like me. So we have we'll rename this the Two Unicorn channel. I think that makes more sense at this point in time. But it's just like, what we want to do is to give you some real unique perspective into your environment. And perhaps we can say one or two things that's absolutely going to shift your energy. It's going to shift your power so that you're becoming more capable of doing what you want to do in your personal and professional life. And before we go into that, I actually did get somebody who hit me up yesterday because they absolutely love our channel. So I wanted to go into some more of the stuff before we start going straight. Is that cool? All right. So basically, yo, Fred, I'm loving the content on YouTube. Cool. And what they want to see more of, and this is where we definitely come in, three main areas. And this is all verbatim. Okay. The mind. I want to learn the fundamental principles of the mind that influence all aspects of life: business, innovation, paradigm shifts, living a good life, everything. Not just knowing about them, but understanding them deeply enough that I can see these principles consistently to get the outcomes I actually want in life. Like having a reliable operating system for how the mind works, so I'm not just guessing or getting lucky. That's the first one. The second one is human communication. I want to understand how to communicate with humans in a way that actually inspires action and creates real change. And I mean across all levels, whether that's one-on-one conversations, marketing to thousands, closing sales, building movements and tribes. The underlying principles that work whether you're talking to one person or a million, because at the end of the day, it's all about moving people. That's so beautiful. And then the third one is adapting and anticipating the environment. I want to develop an eye that can actually predict what's coming, opportunities before they're obvious, crises before they hit, and especially the different forms of deception and manipulation being used on us. Then learn how to position myself strategically so I can navigate whatever comes my way and consistently come out on top. Not just surviving, but actually winning regardless of what the environment throws at me. I know it's quite long, but I'm just a 22-year-old trying to understand life. Shout out. I just got to say shout out. That's really an amazing testament, and that's Shane. So I told him I'd give him a shout out today. What's your thoughts on that so far?
Where do we start? Let's jam.
Tell
I
me.
mean, we can start anywhere on this. Just pick the area and we'll go.
Cool. Here's where I think we need to start. I'm a businessman, as most people know. I've been online for a long time. I specialize in, I didn't even realize it was called lead generation and client acquisition. To Shane's point, all I do is have conversations real deeply and things tend to happen. I've been able to do that at scale. So to me, Shane, that would be definitely a secret because that one's hidden in plain sight. Because what I'm seeing in the marketplace right now is still a version of high level divide and conquer. And as a result of that, it's creating a dangerous environment for all of us. And that's one of the reasons why I started out very high level with what's going on in the world right now and how that affects us personally, professionally, intellectually, spiritually, socially, financially, all those different leads, right? But that's really what happens if we don't really create a safe point in our environment. It's going to be real hard to really want to be able to do anything else, yet alone do other things with other people. So that's one of the reasons why this channel Signal Clarity was created. Because even as an example, T, me and you didn't talk about it. I actually started publishing a lot of my work that I did about several years ago when I was getting off the road, when I was working with some high level clients, right? And this is Fred at like his most highest level, fresh off the road, no noise in my world. Because this again, like I said, when you're traveling like that, like I did, I was home about maybe 6 or 7 days out the month for 15 years. The other time I was just traveling nonstop. And a lot of my previous military training was two things, Shane. The first one was always act as if you're talking to 5 billion people because it was 5 billion at that time. And the second thing was always act as if the microphone is on. And now that was pretty interesting to hear that back in 1995. And now that's more prevalent now more than ever. But my point to you is that there is a proven repeatable process that me and Tayu are going to go over. We also, what I want to do today, T, is really start breaking down some of these elements that you've seen from a very surgical and actually clinical level, because there are some grifters out here in the marketplace. Because when we're able to remove all of this noise and all of these particles out of our life, the mind really does work like a nuclear reactor. When you're super clear and you're able to really focus and get things handled in a certain way, your environment safe, then you're able to just really get out here, get after it, flourish and prosper, make all kinds of whatever you want to do in life. But you have to be able to get this safe point in life, because if not, then it is a dangerous environment. Do you agree or do you disagree on that?
No, I agree. Clarity is everything. Peace, inner peace, being free from emotional distress, or at least having the tools to manage it, not being overwhelmed. I would say most people would probably agree right now that that's their biggest problem. Not being able to focus, not being able to concentrate, being easily triggered, easily upset. Um, that's not surprising given the volume of information coming our way, and we're not given any tools of how to manage that or kind of soothe ourselves, calm ourselves down. We're being bombarded with it, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So if you can take us a little bit more walk through the anatomy of what you're seeing that's creating a dangerous environment for most people, what does that look like in your world? Because when they're coming to you, they're already in a certain space
Yeah,
mentally,
I mean,
right?
by the time you get to me, there's a couple of things that you've gone through, so you're pretty serious about getting the help, but things have already sadly gotten pretty bad. That's just the nature of people coming to seek mental health, and mental help in general. I mean, one of the things that I'm seeing a lot, and this is a question, is, and we've spoken about this before, Fred, is credibility and who can I trust? And what is the source of information that I can trust? A lot of that, as you just said, is because we've had grifters in the marketplace. We've had con artists, we've had all sorts of people who have planted themselves as experts with no real expertise behind them to back up anything they say. And they've had a forum and a platform to be able to speak on authority on things they know absolutely nothing about, really, with zero tools. So none of it is about helping people. And they've been quite successful in terms of getting the followers and in terms of getting, it's like a popularity contest. And who to trust and who is credible is becoming an increasingly complicated question, especially as we move in more into these AI times and worlds, right? Because it's becoming more convoluted. But A lot what I've seen more than ever is, like, a serious lack of expertise in the field. Just if I put on an astronaut suit and I start wandering around and calling myself an astronaut, does that mean I am one? No, it doesn't.
In the
I mean, I
military world, we call that stolen valor.
like, just because I think I am something doesn't mean I am one. And the problem is, but if there's no standard and everyone's wandering around calling themselves different things, how do you know one from the other? And people just want help. So the public's confused. They want help. They want real help. They want real tools. They don't want fluff. They don't want smoke mirrors. They want real tools. And they're just not available because that's not how it's been set up. So that's something I'm seeing, but people are generally very overwhelmed. They are overwhelmed with their personal lives. They're overwhelmed with, the economy, the news that they're accessing. The world's just an overwhelming place. But we have social media there who that is also adding to the feelings of being overwhelmed because people are just kind of doom scrolling and being constantly fed content based on algorithms and what their likes and dislikes are. If you understand anything about social media, and I know you do, Fred, you will know that it's been designed for this purpose. And it's not been designed for the welfare of people. It's been designed, for other things. So, but people they don't know how to, decipher, and it's getting more complicated between what's true, what's not true, what's an opinion, what's a fact, and who's saying what, because everyone's kind of doing everything. So it's really overwhelming. And I think the levels of depression are high at the moment. Levels January in general, we call that depression month in our field, mental health. We all know that. Um, November tends to be anxiety month because that's the one coming before the holidays, right? And then the holidays are obviously a tough time for many. And then January is officially like depression month for many, many people in mental health. But depression levels and anxiety are really, really high, and fear. I have never seen so much fear within people as I'm seeing right now in the field. And it's kind of frightening. And this fear-based mentality. And fear-based mentality is a perfect mechanism of control. Because if you're fearful, you go into flight or fight mode. That means the signal goes to the brain, which is your reptilian part of the brain. It's your oldest part of your brain. It's the part of your brain that's there and ensures your survival. And when all the blood rushes to that area, what it does is it hijacks it, meaning that you can't actually get to those higher cognitive processes of decision making, executive functioning, creativity, which is all up here. That's all hijacked. So your body just kind of goes into that fight, flight, survival mode. And that is the most primitive way of using your brain. And a lot of people are sitting in it because it's just basic survival, right? And a lot of people are sitting in that space trying to access higher areas of their mind and wondering why on earth they can't get there.
Yeah, perfect. And that really ties into what Shane was asking about as well, because one of the secrets for me is I understand communication at a very deep level.
Mm,
So what happens is that's the reasons why this channel is specifically called Signal Clarity. It doesn't matter to me what you're trying to do in life. If you don't understand that there are thoughts that turn into things,
yeah.
then the problem is we don't understand that those things need to be controlled. So we have to be able to make sure our environment intellectually, outwardly, inwardly is set up in a way to where we win. And that's what I'm not seeing in the marketplace. That's not what I'm seeing in people's personal or professional lives. And as a result of that, there's confusion. And that's exactly what I talked about at the UN last year. War is simply confusion. If we had to give another name to the word war, it is confusion. And when you have divide and conquer, then what happens is we don't know who to believe or where to go because we are social creatures. We all want to survive. We all want to do the best we can in life. We all want to really help people. But there is another side of this coin where there are other people and other entities that don't want to see you win. So, what we're looking at right now is a product. Whether we want to admit it or not, different story. But the reality of it is, when you understand that everything in this world is a product, then it's like either negative or positive. And last night I did upload another video they can check out where I go into the actual physics of it. because if you went to physics class, it holds the exact same way. If you have negative energy and a positive energy, it's negative. If you have positive energy and a negative, it's still negative. If you have a positive energy and positive, it's still positive. And if you're negative and if you're negative, that's still positive. So this is physics at this point in time. And when I look at communication from a physics viewpoint, because I'm a nerd like that and I love being a nerd, so I'm especially a word nerd, I really want people to understand that thoughts really are things, and how we craft those things into our life is what really manifests. I can get woo woo with the best of them, but I also know that we have to engineer things in our life as well. But that requires us being able to confront things. It requires us to really understand at some point in time we have to take a little bit of responsibility and ultimately a lot, and just expect to win versus expect to lose. When you listen to all the top athletes out there and the top performers, and you watch all of these YouTube videos or Instagram, you see them talking to themselves and hyping themselves up. There's a reasons why they're doing that. So we can take this winning attitude and these winning attributes. But we have to understand that the goal here, at least from my viewpoint, is to go from a less dangerous environment to a more stable environment so that we can set something up so that we're able to really be in a position where we can speak freely and be able to communicate in a way to where we're really projecting what we want others to know about us. Does that make sense, or was that weird?
Sense? No, makes sense to me. Yeah.
Cool. So what else are you seeing out there in the marketplace regarding the grifter mindset, the mentality, the anatomy of it? Because see, I look at these grifters as being pattern interrupts in the matrix. There's a lot of marketing and advertising out there where we're polishing turds and they look so good that, oh my God, I got to order one. And but wait, there's an upsell and downsell and cross sell and in-sell and outsell, right? It's just everything that still is a packaged turd, but it's still a turd. So how are we from your viewpoint able to really start really identifying these things?
I think it's starting to become aware of the red flags. And I don't think that's something that where the public really is aware of. So you got to look at like pathology a little bit here. If you know me, I've been watching crime shows, CSI and forensic. I actually wanted to go into forensic at one point, but I have too much empathy and I care too much about people. That's what a mentor told me once upon a time. So I wouldn't actually be able to work a day in and day out in that field because it would just affect me too much. But I mean, I've been watching these shows, and there is a pathology and there is a trait and characteristics and traits of criminals. We all know this because there's courses on criminology, all of it. Well, I mean, grifters are not too far off that. And they do have a method and they do have a pathology that is, it may not result in murder, but it definitely results in conning. And one of the thing is they don't have that conscience and that integrity. The integrity and the conscience that you and I might have, Fred, is missing. It is missing. It is actually not about helping people. It's about branding. It's about massaging egos. It's about how do I make myself as popular and as visible as possible? That's what it's really about for a lot of grifters, and it involves an awful lot of manipulation. One of the like absolute red flags that you can absolutely look out for is that someone who's claiming to help you, if the first thing that comes out of their mouth is their own experience, that's problematic. Nobody who's a trained professional does that. I have associates I supervise, and that means that they're not fully licensed mental health professionals. They're under supervision for several years before they are able to work with clients individually and without any mentorship or guidance. That's what that means. Not, and they will tell you as like a basic rookie that is something you never do. Your time with a client is about holding space for a client and understanding them. None of that involves talking about yourself. Now, if there's a question that's asked that's clinically appropriate, you might disclose something if you feel comfortable to do so. But by no means do you start the conversation talking about your experience and your journey. That is an absolute red flag. And that is a number one thing I see people do. and that's how they win them over. But if I share my journey with you and my experience, you will relate to me, and then you will share the struggle that I may have had that you also have, and then I have you hooked and connected. I mean, it's a brilliant, brilliant manipulation tactic. Brilliant. And criminals are not too dissimilar. I mean, what are signs of criminals? They're pathological liars. They don't have high levels of empathy. They don't have a high level of conscience. They don't have kind of, they're quite disingenuous. So these are like very common signs of a lot of pathology of criminals. There is a high level of ego operating, selfishness, narcissism, all of that that's operating there. How too dissimilar is that from like these fraudulent individuals that we have? I mean, there's a lot of kind of similarities there, actually. Manipulation, pathological kind of lying, and there's patterns of behavior which are very, very obvious, of people who actually have nothing behind it to that, and they're using it, and they're getting to places and spaces they don't really belong in.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that too, because that's what I'm observing as well. And that's just slick marketing and advertising. And again, the thing about it, though, to your point, was when I first started getting out into the different industries, they
Yeah.
use the word that we learned in the military, which is campaigns. I'm like, campaigns is a military term. Anybody can look at that and see that that is a military term. So I'm traveling all of this time in my life, right? I'm still I'm still like in this position where I don't have any noise around me. And then I get out into different markets and I'm just like, they're using the word campaign? Like, that's a military term. Like, and the craziest thing about it is they're using military tactics as well for communication. There are high level, secret and above communication tactics that quite frankly you got to earn. It's one of those things that regardless of what kind of rooms you're getting in, good luck on trying to get into those kinds of rooms. And because the thing about it is, it's and I give this example because I was in the car business for a very, very long time. My son just got his license as well, right? So it's just like when you get a license, that's an oath. It's a code. What you're promising is that in the event something happens,
Yeah.
you get your license to print money taken away from you. It's just that simple. But it doesn't mean necessarily that you should take those tactics and those strategies and apply them to people who are not seeing you for a particular reason. Like we still have to be able to communicate what's happening.
No, that's it. I said you're absolutely right. That I forgot to add that moral and ethical compass is always missing in the pathology of individuals who have high levels of these traits. Like it's always missing, right? Because that moral ethical compass which guides you from the right from wrong is missing.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where it doesn't make your environment any safer. And it gets worse
Yeah.
because even when I was training, right, I just knew certain things I would never just say in quote unquote regular public because this is how the high ticket industry actually got formed online. I watched some of these people take these tools straight from a very high level industry like the automotive industry, called the car business, and they're using them. These are military grade tools. I mean, there's a reasons why somebody doesn't want to spend 30, 40, $50,000 out the gate, and you figured out how to override their mind, that defense mechanism, just so that they can do it and they may regret it later on. That's buyer's remorse, right? I don't think people put enough value on words to understand their true impact. And me and you have talked about that before, especially in the high ticket online space. People will give up their last $10,000, $20,000. They'll remortgage their houses because they have some slick grifter out there who
Yeah,
really understands how these mechanisms work. And then they're saying, oh, well, now that you're across the finish line, you need another 40, $50,000 just to go
absolutely.
to the next level. And you're
And
just
I
like,
think what they teach you is that you appeal to the to the weaknesses. You appeal to the weak spots, right? I mean, look, I'm gonna throw a few things out there. So, one thing that anybody who's conning somebody always has, and we've seen this a lot, and there are even shows out there, the Tinder swindler, bad vegan. Reinventing Anna. These are just some of the shows on Netflix that I watch in my spare time. These
I'm
are
just now learning about Netflix, so I'm just
I haven't even gone into Law and Order Special Victims Unit because that's really intense. But this is the stuff I watch in my free time, right? Because I think it's fascinating. But if you look and you see in all of those, what do these people have in common? And these are full on con artists, right? And eventually times catch up with them. They are charming, right? That's something that you always see as a trait. Charming, but a lot of times the way they connect, it's almost like the Terminator where they scan people who are vulnerable and they connect to the weakness and the vulnerability of that person. Like, how much is your anxiety worth to you? How badly do you not want to be depressed? And then they get that person in a space where the person goes, "Oh my God, well, I'll, like anything at this point." And it's just like, well, here you go. And then the sales or whatever offer comes through. And this is how they're able to kind of operate. It's a way of connection, but it's like the lowest hanging fruit, right? And there's a lot of that out there, a lot. And people have also been, and what I also see is desperation, right? So there's a lot of desperation for real help. People really wanting tools, really wanting to get better, and just like not knowing who to go to for what. So they're just reaching out, going like, I need help. Who can help? Can you help me? Can you help me? And then someone comes along and it's like, yeah, I can help you, but it's like, this amount of money. And then they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. Money doesn't matter. I just want to get better. I just don't want to not feel like this.
yeah. No, you said a mouthful there, and you just made me think of something else. There's already patterns out here that clearly demonstrate what's happening to you in real time. Like you mentioned the stuff that you're seeing on Netflix, right? I remember when I first got off the road, I just started watching TV. As crazy as that sounds, like I
Oh,
just
wow.
started watching TV. And I think I told you this before. There's one with Raymond Reddington. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Blacklisted, right? And I'm watching this stuff, and Regina's watching it, and I'm just like calling out all of these plays before they're happening. She's like, "You've never even seen this before." I'm like, "This is a documentary. I don't know what y'all think this is. This is not entertainment right here. This is this is something else." And what amazed me was that here's the craziest thing about it. In the Marine Corps, a lot of these guys, because I was down in Camp Pendleton, I was with 15th MEU. Shout out to my 15th MEU SOC guys. Got out the Marines. But it's just like, so what we would do is we would have like people from Hollywood come down, and they would actually consult with my unit to make sure that the depictions were accurate. So that's the level of realism that's being projected into our society. It's at the level where it needs to be like spot on for believability. Because guys like me and girls like you, we can see right through it. So we need to be able to just really, not to BS, or they don't hold their rifle this way, or that never happens, right? But for the average person who's just trying to, like, as a business owner, they want to make payroll, or they've got trouble with their kids, or they're leaving out of corporate America and they don't know what to do next. They don't know they don't know what to look for. And that goes back into my earlier dialogue coming back in, like, especially if somebody wants to change their life, because this is where a lot of these personal development grifters live now. They understand that they need to change their life. They understand that it's going to require some type of client acquisition, sales, and marketing if they want to do their business, because that's what the majority of the people want. And I got hard data that supports that. The reality of it is, though, they still don't understand that they have to set up their environment into a way where it's not dangerous, because that's the first thing that all of these high ticket programs teach is, hey, we're going to go over some mindset. And you go, oh, mindset again. But what they're doing is they're following a pattern that may or may not work, because the only thing that they're doing is that they're cloning a flawed pattern to begin with. So to your point earlier, they tell their story to try to get some believability and credibility into the marketplace, versus doing real study, versus doing real work, versus practicing daily like me and you do in our professions, and we get after it. So we're wrench turners, we're operators. There's a difference between having somebody out there who's a grifter versus a real world operator who's getting results.
We're action orientated. We're not sitting here. I mean, we're sitting here in this podcast right now talking, but we're in general in life, we're action oriented. We're not complacent, and we're not in producing entertainment content either. Like we are actually active in in what we do.
Yeah. And
Big
and
difference.
again, that's why we're breaking this down to you guys, is because this really is the anatomy of a grifter. I'm not gonna even tell you how many times I've had grifters want to take pictures with me, and I'm just like, nah, I don't want to put my name on that.
I
It just,
good.
it happens to me more often than not, because it's just like, look, I'm not going to sit here and just say, and this is maybe controversial, but I don't care, because I don't think that not everybody who is trying to be a grifter is a grifter. They may have a bad pattern that they think is a good result because they see other people doing it. Because there
Sure.
were times in the car business, as an example, before I got formal professional training, where I thought what I was doing was the right thing and it was 100% wrong. I was making money, so I kept doing it because I say this, you do that, the money slides across the table, right? That was the pattern, that's the mechanism. But that didn't mean that it was right just because that money's sliding across the table. There was a lot that came with that. So as I learned, as I got more sophisticated, as I started really understanding and going deep, because just because I learned this knowledge base doesn't mean that I'm good over here at this knowledge base. So that's why the training really is important, but there have to be certain elements set up beforehand so that by the time I do get to the point where I need training, all of those other boxes are checked. That's one of the reasons why we have this channel. It's like, look, you can check me and T out. We're good. The other people who are out there though can't say the same thing because they don't have receipts like we do. So
Yeah.
that's one of the
We
reasons why it's important.
absolutely. Check us out by all means.
Yeah, it's just like go check us out.
Who's
And that's the reason. Well, that's the other reasons why we have New Room Collective as well, because we have a lot of real operators in there. It's an active group, even though it doesn't look like it's active because we're all doing stuff. But that's what I was telling you before. Like, it's to the point now where we have to focus in on the other side of the secret. I'm going to reveal this because this has never really been revealed before. What happens is when you see all of these grifters who are really well organized, it's because they understand organizing, and because they understand how to organize their thoughts, like we talked about, thoughts are things, and they understand signal clarity to an extent. What they're doing is they're getting organized enough to the point where they can project something out into the market long enough to the point where they're either gaslighting people with the ads or they're actually catching a trend. And we saw that with the funnel bros when that first came out. Let's take Shane, for example. Shane's 22 right now, right? Let's put some math behind this because I'm not all about the words either. Let's put some math behind this. He's 22 right now. When I first started getting into the online marketing world, it was 2009. Like, I was one of the first people. I had a college funding practice. I'm running ads. I'm killing it. I'm number one in the country. Some of these guys who actually did the marketing and advertising are on my timeline. They're very well known, but we crushed it. I just took the mechanisms that I learned from advertising and marketing, right? And then I applied it to a real practice, which was college funding, because I help people reduce the kids, the lower cost of education for kids. And we crushed it. That's because I'm a professional. I get it. So if you just get the tools without really a product behind it, because that's a sub product, what you're really doing is you're selling a shovel. You're not helping people get the gold. And that's the difference. But a lot of these guys, even when I was coaching them up, I'm like, guys, you don't have a business, you have a funnel. You might be making money, but it's not going to fall into IRS practices because I have my tax license too. So it's just like, look, I'm not going to sit here and dispense you advice, and I'm still not going to dispense tax advice because I no longer have my license. But my point is, I'm smart enough to get my license. I'm smart enough to go behind the curtain. And even in my last video, I talked about there's a source to a source, and sometimes you are the source. So if you are the source, like I just did a white paper for a military quarterly publication, like I got sources for the sources because I am the source. It's my experience, but I'm backing it up with valid, vetted sources so that I am also part of that conversation. That's not what I'm seeing in the marketplace as far as course creation, development, course design, none of that stuff. So what happens is somebody who's not as sophisticated as us to understand that process, they just
Mm,
they just come along, they happen to see an ad, it hits them in the face, it's pushing all the buttons, the grifter knows which buttons to push. Then they get them down for, $3 or $7, 27, 47, 97, 197, all of this upsells. Next thing you know, they're spending 20, 30, 40, 50, or $150,000 for masterminds. All the time this person is getting drained because they're not getting the product that they originally wanted, which was help. That was the
absolutely.
product that they wanted. They wanted help. So if you're not helping people and you're charging money, you're a grifter. I don't know how else to put it. Like, period.
Absolutely you are. Yeah, absolutely you are.
So let's go a little bit deeper as far as what do you see that can help somebody identify a little bit more when they're in pain? Like, in the Thought Leader Academy, as an example, back in 2020, that's why I released it on our school now. It's just like I taught the half second step back. I learned that from being in the military. Like I told you, I was out in the desert. A lot of people know that story with me. I actually got stuck out there. Come to find out, I wasn't the only one who was stuck out there for a while. But what I did in order to keep my sanity was I really learned how to step back from a situation and see it. Much like a movie director, like a movie director hires actors to fulfill the scene, right? They're not actually in the scene per se, unless they just want to do it, right? But the script is already written and they've pulled back from it, and that's what I pretty much did at that point in time. I fell into my military training, quite frankly, because I learned how to do that in military school. So I pulled back enough to be able to see the scene so that I could correctly assess it. Do you have any tools or thoughts on how people can do that if they're really in pain and before they push that button that could possibly take them down a unnecessary rabbit hole?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, pain is pain is pain, and I do understand that the pain is real and the struggle is real, and people are really desperate, kind of reaching out to alleviate that pain. But what I would say that would be really important, and I wish people would do this before they go for a way to alleviate that pain and to or struggle and before they sign up to anything, whether it's a program, whether it's a conversation, whether it's whatever, it's like just stop and ask yourself, who am I talking to right now? Who is this person I'm talking to? Who are they? Who are they? Not who they're claiming to be, who they actually are. Big difference. Claiming to be is the hope that they're going to be this person that can do this. And how are they credible? What do they have that equips them to help you with your problem? Is it a degree? Is it life experience? What exactly is it and how are you gauging and ascertaining that? Is it just backed up by I just had this one experience in my life and then that no, that's not enough. You need to have had, like you said, real tools. Like what is it that and I think this is where we've gone really wrong is because we have lost the gauge of credibility. The background checks and the thoroughness of credibility of who is credible at what they do versus who is not credible has been completely overlooked. Again, resulting in people being in spaces they have no business being in, speaking on authority on things they absolutely know nothing about, but claim they know everything about, and maybe have some basic knowledge. But there is a diligence and a thoroughness and like a clearance that needs to take place, which I think in some spaces we have completely neglected and overlooked from what I see that's out there, which has allowed people, grifters specifically, to get into spaces they have no business being in. So the first thing I would say to anyone who's looking out for help with their struggle is how do you feel this person is equipped to help you? And how are you checking that out? You know, because if you're checking someone out who has a license, you can look that up. You can see that they're qualified. If you're but if they don't have anything to back up that they can do and deliver what they're saying to do, that should be alerting a red flag to you. Because the reality is that they can give you something, but who knows? And whether they help you or solve your issue, they have no more responsibility or code for that. There's no standard for that, you know? So
Yeah.
I think this is what we need to really, really get better at. And the public really needs to understand that. Like, if you want to learn to play tennis, you go to a qualified tennis coach, right? You don't go to I don't know, somebody teaching you how to play ping pong, do you? You go to somebody qualified.
Yeah, I want to jump into there real quick too, because again, you know me, I'm going to go deep. So what I have observed as well, unfortunately, because again, I've been in the car game and I've been in licensed industries before. You still have grifters even in those types of industries as well.
You do,
I
but they
think
have
this is one of the reasons why, like, this is the other reasons why we have this channel in particular, is because I got enough stuff that's free that demonstrates exactly who I am. Like, you can take this right now and it works. It's one of the reasons why I release some of my highly paid stuff for free, because it's just like, look, even if I charge you the exact same money that I did back in 2020, it's going to be the exact same stuff. The only difference is that I'm probably going to supervise you to make sure that you get the result, like straight up. And the thing about it is, I believe that's the new model for people, because some of my other friends who are doing really, really well right now practice that as well. They rather just demonstrate it to say, hey, look, go out there and test this, see how it works, and then come back, and then we'll see where we can go from there. Because unfortunately, even with the licensed industries, sometimes people like to look at that and go, "Oh, well, they're licensed," or "Oh, I have a college degree." Well, we also both know that there are people out there who have college degrees and they're not qualified, or they're talking about one thing and they were looking at it as a subject, and then they find something else, right? Again, use always let the buyer beware. That's my point in saying that.
I mean, the whole point of having regulation is to have standards. I know that we don't like regulation. It can be a real pain in the backside, but this is also why we have it is for there to be a standard. And under certainly a mental health regulation license, one of the first thing is do client no harm. That is something that is in our ethical code of conduct, that every single thing that we do in our clinical practice always has to have the client's welfare at the, at the forefront, and make sure that nothing we do will cause that client harm. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what, yeah. So there is a reason regulation exists,
Oh yeah,
and
100%. Well,
yeah,
that, to me, regulation is just one part of a triangle, though, and this is something that isn't talked about, because you do have regulation, but you also have administration. Like, even when you look at the government, there is a form of administration. Just came back from Thailand, same thing. The Thai administration is fire. That's the reason why everybody wants to stay in Thailand. Like, it was literally the number one most traveled destination on the planet last year. They did the New Year celebration there, so
it's
administration is definitely
such
huge
a
as
fabulous
well,
country.
but we
Yeah,
also have to have facilitation too. So proper facilitation, proper administration, and proper regulation in
yeah,
balance, in my opinion, will help
totally.
generate that standard that we need so that we can have a safe point so that we can function. Because without that, these are different survival mechanisms that, to me, when you bring them all together, it does form a very powerful triangle. So that if we do have something starting to get out of balance, let's take a look at that. Let's see what's happening. Did something change in the marketplace, or did a principle shift, or is something else happening? Or, and this is how we're able to spot people who are grifters. This is how we're able to spot people, because there is a standard, to your point. We want to bring people up to a standard. So in order to bring people up to a standard, though, they have to have responsibility by simply being wanting, they really want to learn. And that's the reasons why the personal development industry is there, right? But then we also have to have people who understand education. They understand why people are literate and why they aren't literate, like literate and illiterate. So there's this whole process that we need to have in place so that people can just study, they can get the result, and through their practice of actually doing it versus getting just knowledge. There's one thing, the difference between having information and knowledge and wisdom, right? So we want to be able to get people to a point where they can take that information and transform it into wisdom, but they have to have the proper knowledge in the first place. So to me, that triangle is efficient. So don't know if you ever heard that before, but
I
that's
have
what I.
not heard of that, but I really like it. Credibility is so important, standard, and this is something that I think really will really help people. I'm really hoping it will, to just take into like consideration like the standard equals credibility, credibility equals standard. That's how these things are linked. This is why that's how it makes one different from another, and we seem to have really lost that gauge.
So is there any hope for mankind?
I hope so. I hope so, and hopefully by having these conversations, we're shedding light on topics and things that can be confusing to people, and I get it. It is really confusing. I think something else we have to get better at is explaining and talking about training. And I'm talking the training that we've had in our own lives of how, because I think that's something we tend to like go through and we don't talk about, and it gets lost as you move on. But I think that's important because that is also a standard. That is a standard of like, yeah, it's an important standard. It's a really important standard. Look at all the training you went to that qualifies you to do what you do. Look at what I went through, but we don't talk about that. We don't actually talk about what that entails, because I think if we start talking about what the training looks like, then I think the level of respect goes up higher, and it's also documented. So it's not like I'm just saying to you like I saw 3,000 hours worth of clients before I was licensed as a mental health professional. Like, I have document proof I can show you. You know what I mean? There's a huge difference.
Oh, it is, because when I tell people I've got 1,200 hard hours as far as professional communications training in the Marine Corps,
There
and
you
I got
go.
the receipts, that is a lot. I don't care who you
That's
are on this
true.
planet, that is a tremendous amount,
Well,
and
we
that
don't
was back
talk
in.
about that. We
Yeah.
go through that training silently, and then we come out the other end, and then we get on with other things. But I think we possibly what something we need to do is to let people know of what was entailed in that training and what it covered, because that equips us and adds credibility and also like earns respect. Like, oh my God, this person, like, they learn about all these things. They, like, I don't know, there was in education, it was in programs, it was supervised, it was all of that. It was there was a whole exam they had to take after. It was not is it it's a huge difference. There's a huge difference. And I
Yeah,
think we
yeah. Yeah, I wanna wrap that part up real eloquently, because what you just said was so critical good. It's just, like, important or essential. So, it's just like, there's so many other things that need to happen before a course is released, or, somebody gets into a profession. It's just like a professional athlete. They may spend 2 years training just to have a 10-minute round, of boxing or MMA or Muay Thai, whatever, right? The point is they've really trained to a point really hard, but this is the other problem that I'm seeing, who people who are really professionals, they don't know that they should be doing that, because again, most professionals, hey, I didn't go into my profession so I learned how to sell, or I didn't go into my profession so I can learn how to market and advertise. And that's where these grifters tend to slide in right there.
oh,
That's the entry point right there. So, and that's one common pattern I've seen. I've ran a lot of ads. I've coached up a lot of ads people, agencies. That is the one thing, because the bottom line is no pain, no sale. But we
yeah.
have to make sure that it's an ethical sale to begin with. We have to make sure that the audience really is in a state of mind where they are able to make responsible decisions. It's no different than when we were selling cars. If somebody just signed a contract, it doesn't matter. If they were drunk at the time of sale, it's null and void. If they were on some type of substance, they're null and void.
Something just came to me as you said that, and I have to share it. I think what, as a self-reflective please, people need to really understand how they make decisions. Like, how do you make decisions? Like, what guides your decision making process? Is it pain? So when you're hungry, like, and you go to your fridge, like, what guides what you're going to eat? I think that there's like a connection there that I think is really important for people to understand. And because if it's always just pain and struggle that guides your decision, nothing like that's not a great place to be making informed decisions from. It's like going
Exactly.
to the supermarket hungry. Have you ever been to the supermarket hungry? You buy everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, no, it's funny you say that. And I'm going to share something that we learned in the Marine Corps. I don't know about the rest of the branches of service. I'm glad to have any service members coming in. But in the Marine Corps, we learned JJ did tie buckle. Those are the acronyms for the principles, judgment, just everything all the elements that it would take for you to really get some type of mechanisms in your mind as far as what you believe, what you're against. So I did that with all my kids. So the exercise was to go through the Marine Corps principles, and I'll post it down at the bottom, and then take those and then sort them out in the your top priority to your most important to your least important. It's okay to do that, because then what happens is you start to establish what you do want and what you don't want. What you're for, what you're against. We have to start putting guardrails on our thoughts, no differently than a bowling ball going down a bowling alley. It's got a gutter on the left side, it's got a gutter on the right side. You take that ball and you throw it down there, hoping to hit all the pins and make a strike, right? That ball is your thought. Those pins are your intention. Like, I want to be able to hit and get a strike. But just like in bowling, these guys are professionally trained. So at least if we can understand it from that viewpoint, maybe that's an analogy that sucked, but all I can tell you is just that there are elements that we need to have in place so that we can take that half-second step back. So when we do see an ad, like, hey, if you see an ad that you really like, make a policy to say, hey, you know what? I'm actually going to possibly take a look at that and buy it. Let me put it in my saved folder here, and then look at it 24 hours. That's actually one of my policies. I'll be more than happy to share that with you, because there's a lot of things that I have to study online to see why a person bought, what inspired them to buy, to bought,
Love it.
and then from there being able to see what the outcome was. Did they get the product that they wanted, or was it just something else that was another grifter thing? Because again, last year $15 billion was in fraud. That was just in fraud on Facebook. Like that's a validated fact. $15
Wow.
billion worth in ads of which was straight up fraud. So when it comes to your point, the regulation on things and other things that may or may not be a problem, the bottom line is you have to check yourself first. But to Tayu's point, if you don't know exactly what you want in the first place, or you don't have, and you didn't say this, I'm saying this, if you don't have any guardrails to begin with, then it's going to be hard to make decisions that you really can stick by and actually follow through on the process so that you can become an operator and get the product that you want. Right?
And I think you need to be really clear in your intentions and goals and what your mindset is like. So if you have like a victim mentality or some kind of sabotaging mentality which is not serving you, you have to work through that in order to be able to have clarity and not let that cloud your judgment. Because what that does is all those things are floating around and they come in and they cloud your judgment. And then you're not able to progress or move forward. So I think that's really, really key. And that's why a mindset is important in that regard. And if you look at anybody who's actually very high level, they all do have performance coaches, mindset coaches for that reason, because we all have them. But it's just a case of how well are we managing them? You know, fear, a little bit of hesitation, self doubt, those are not uncommon things that a lot of people struggle with, but it's how are you overcoming that? And I think insight and introspection, you can't put a price tag on that. You really can't, because everything comes, every decision, every single thing you do comes from insight and increased introspection and self awareness. It is, and it is, and it is something that once you grasp and once you have, like, it's not something anyone can take away from you. It will inform all your relationships of what you tolerate, what you don't tolerate, what you do, your business, your family relationships, what you buy, what you eat, you name it. There's nothing it doesn't get involved with. So it's a well worth your time to invest and understanding how you make decisions and from what kind of place do you make decisions. Is it from a fear based thinking? Is it from a scarcity mindset? Is it from a self sabotaging one? Is it from a real lack of core beliefs like, oh, I'm going to fail anyway? So why even, where is that all coming from? Where is all that coming from? Because that's what's holding you back.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think we should go super deep on that one on the next episode. Yeah, definitely want to thank you so much for how you show up to the world because we've talked about this for a while. It's here. It's too many signals out here where there's a lot more confusion, not just in the marketplace, but now we're starting to see it on an international level. So there's a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of doubt, a lot of people out there who don't know what to do next. So the simplest thing that you can do next is to work on figuring out where you are so that you can become unconfused. What does that look like in your personal life? What does that look like in your professional life? What do you really want? Because that way, when you figure out what you really want and then take those tools, at least you can start somewhere. It may not be perfect, but as you're redeveloping maybe your mindset or your philosophy or your beliefs, I'm an interfaith kind of guy because I like to listen to different people's viewpoints and opinions. And I was trained as a journalist, so I'm always curious about a good story anyway. So it's one of those things where I think these kinds of conversations will open up really good, more healthy dialogue, not just for people who want our services, but for the world in general, because that's how this is. We're supposed to be creating communities around us to support us so that we don't have to worry about grifters coming into our life. Like when I used to hold events, you could just tell if somebody was just not supposed to be there because chances are they were invited from somebody else and the energy was off. And you know that
I
we've done
know
stuff together. You know how that goes.
exactly. I know exactly what that feels like. It's like, who the hell invited you?
Yeah. So that's the whole goal, guys. And my challenge to you is to not just take this and just, oh, that was a good episode. No, really go out here and apply it. Like, I want to talk to you, send some comments down, join our free Facebook group, New Room Collective, or also go into our school. It's crap right now because I'm uploading and I'm transferring, but so what? I have a team and I don't want to pay them to do that because they got other stuff they need to do. So I'm an operator. I like to do stuff. But my whole goal with you, T, is to make sure that we really are helping the people who want help, but they also
Yeah.
need to understand that it requires them to just take a little bit of a half second step back, listen to these episodes that me and you are putting out. And again, look, all I want to do is make sure that 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, we're leaving this planet better than how we got here, because there's a lot of stuff right now that's shifting in the world right now in real time. There's a lot of real fear. I know you see it on your side. People are just coming to you sideways. And you do a really amazing job. You're like a there's something about you that you're the deal, man. I freaking love you to death. My wife already knows.
Mutual appreciation over here, totally, it's
Yeah,
reciprocated.
100%. So, guys, if you have any other questions, thoughts, concerns, if you want to get with me and T, just please drop the comments down. Let us know. Like I said, we're building this channel out, but it's the whole goal of serving you to the highest level. Shout out to Shane. Thank you so much for really, really doing this. Shout out to Nick. Shout out to you, brother. I love you as well. That was a very powerful episode. And we just want to keep shining like new paint on so that everybody can understand that there is a real safe space for you to go at, and then start safe pointing yourself first. So just take this stuff. God bless. And if you need anything, give us a holler. Anything you want to say or add before we wrap up?
You summarized it all very eloquently said.
Cool. Well, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.